In past videos, I talked about how Microsoft Recall is mandatory, and I wanted to show this. Obviously, this is Recall for those that don't know. It's a service that Microsoft is launching for any newer PCs that have Copilot Plus certified processors in them that take a screenshot every 5 seconds and then OCRs it. And that way you can type anything into like a search box up here, and then it displays everything it found. So whether that's chat history, whether it's websites you visited, it's kind of a security or privacy nightmare when you really think about it. So most people have railed against this, but the biggest thing was when you installed Windows 24H2, all of a sudden when you look, the feature is there. And that was the gist of the last couple of videos. Was the feature is there. I couldn't find necessarily a binary running, but it was there and enabled. And I wanted to give an update and show you the source files we found tied to this feature, why removing the feature from an offline image breaks File Explorer, and also the fixes for all these things and kind of what the future holds, because this is something that is a bit scary for any Windows user. So first off, disabling the feature, what's in these files. We traced the recall feature back to the Microsoft Windows Client AIX folder in System Apps. And when doing a listing, there's really not much here. There's no executable. There's no actual program here, such as recall to run. Right now, it is just looks like a placeholder, and it contains Visual C++ runtime DLLs. So nothing of concern here for me, but on removing it, why does deleting this folder break modern File Explorer, especially when you're doing like a cleanup and making a new image? And the big thing was, this has a dependency in its app manifest. Don't worry, I know this is a lot of technical knowledge and lingo that I'm about to throw your way, but it's about to make a lot of sense. And the gist of it is, this Microsoft Windows App Runtime CVS is dependent on AIX, but it's also dependent on File Explorer. Well, when the app manifest from AIX, which is recall, is removed from an install, during the cleanup phase, it looks for any other app manifests that rely on CVS. Whether it's a bug, oversight, or just plain incompetence by Microsoft, they just forgot to add it as a dependency in File Explorer. So that left File Explorer getting purged of anything reliant on CBS, which is all of the tabs, dark mode, and a lot of the new features that have come out in the last several years for File Explorer. You can also see our fix here for the misinformation out there on recall. I said in a past video incorrectly that I was looking for a File Explorer alternative because I thought recall was dependent on it. However, under closer inspection, it's the dependency of the CBS library that gives it that new look, that adds the tabs and other things. So we can safely remove recall, and we can add that dependency and fix Microsoft's mistake with the manifest right here by adding it as a dependency. And you can see we can now remove recall safely without breaking File Explorer. So very cool fix, but it's kind of ridiculous we had to do this to begin with. And that kind of leads me to the future of Windows and kind of what we're doing here. I also want to reiterate here, recall is not running on x86 systems yet. And I cannot find any binaries on any non-Copilot Plus PCs. So that does not mean, there's a lot of YouTubers that are like, oh my God, every Microsoft spying on you is taking screenshots every 5 seconds on every PC. No, that is not happening. I can say definitively now that is definitely not the case. However, we do need to pay attention to this. One, we could be monitoring this AIX folder. So when these binaries do appear and that feature is enabled, this should populate out with the full recall application. And I anticipate this happening later this year. And it should happen on anybody that buys a new Intel Core Ultra Series 2 processor or an AMD Ryzen 300 AI chip. These have an NPU in them, and they will be capable of doing everything that recall has destined. If you meet all these requirements, Copilot Plus PC, which is a CPU with that NPU we talked about, 24H2 installed, 16 gigs of RAM, 8 logical processors, and 256 gig storage capacity at a bare minimum with 50 gigs of free space. So that's a lot of space to just kind of dedicate to this scary feature. And that's the fix for all of this and where we're going in the future. The other thing I kind of wanted to show was a post I found on NT Lite. One big thing about this was, one, they trace back recall to the AIX folder in system apps, but also there's new packages like Photon, which we don't quite know, or I haven't done enough investigation to know what that is, but removing it breaks the start menu. And then also removing BitLocker now is causing a lot more errors. So one thing that is happening to Windows is they're adding a lot more features, and they're making those new features dependent on even older features. So File Explorer, Start Menu, removing these new features now all of a sudden break these older ones because of just bad, incompetent programmers or engineers. I don't know. You be the judge. Is this malicious or is it just plain incompetence? I can't decide which, and I'm not going to speculate on either one. All I know is I don't like the direction of Windows, and I'm just going to continually working on this, trying to show you exactly what's happening. But please don't twist my words. Try and take this at face value and say, this is what's going on. Check these systems. If you see this in the future, pull up that AIX menu. See exactly what's there. What files are present? Is it just still the C++ libraries? These are all things we should all be checking, and just so we have a safe, at least somewhat safe experience when we do have a Windows and strip it down. And if you are curious, I still highly recommend MicroWin from my utility. It's a good way to strip down that ISO safely without causing any bugs or errors, because if you just do it willy-nilly, as we've seen with a lot of these new services, there's a lot of problems that come with it. And also a big shout out to a lot of the community members that did a lot of this investigation and contacted me. Shout out to Wither or Not, Coding Wonders, Fish Bazooka, and the Cat on the Ceiling for figuring out this fix and kind of talking to me about it and saying, hey, Titus, this is exactly what's happening. This library, the CVS library, is just not properly getting reference from File Explorer because it gets purged when recall does, and making these fixes happen are just really big. But at the same time, it is concerning because honestly, this should have been a completely separated partitioned off thing, and them kind of integrating it into the system under system apps, kind of hidden like they've done, just doesn't feel good. But at the same time, we're going to have to wait and see before we can just completely say, yes, everything's here and it is officially being spied on. They're taking screenshots every 5 seconds. That future hasn't come here yet, but it's something we should look out for.